And now the news with Nova.
Good day, I'm Nova Sterling. Today we're examining two interconnected stories that together paint a clear picture of where the United States stands right now, what is actually happening with America's Strategic Petroleum Reserve, and what the ongoing Iran conflict is truly costing ordinary Americans. Let's begin with the reserve itself. The Strategic Petroleum Reserve was established in 1975 following the oil crisis of that era. The oil is stored in enormous underground salt caverns with a capacity of roughly 700 million barrels. In times of national emergency, those reserves can be released to stabilize fuel prices. The system can deliver significant volume in under 2 weeks. President Trump has authorized the release of approximately 172 million barrels. Of that, just over 30 million barrels have actually left the caverns, and of those, roughly 13 million, or about 40%, have left the United States entirely. As that export figure has entered wider reporting, three questions keep surfacing. Let's take them in order. Why is it taking so long? In non-emergency scenarios, the reserve is not depleted all at once. Controlled releases are used to cushion prices over time, particularly when a disruption is expected to be prolonged. A steady drip is more effective at price management than a single flood. Why haven't prices come down? Reserve releases don't reduce prices, they slow the rate of increase. When 240 million barrels were released in 2022, the US Treasury estimated the impact at 13 to 33 cents per gallon. At today's average of $4.50 and a standard 16-gallon tank, that's roughly $2 to $5 per fill-up. Helpful, not transformative. Why is oil being exported when domestic prices are this high? Oil trades on global markets. That's precisely why nations coordinate through the International Energy Agency. Exporting from strategic reserves during a supply disruption is standard international practice. The reserve can moderate prices. It cannot resolve them. That requires a different kind of decision. Which brings us to the second story. Over the weekend, President Trump posted to Truth Social claiming that a peace deal with Iran had been largely negotiated and that final details would be announced shortly. The facts precisely as they stand. Trump said the agreement would include the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz. He reported calls with leaders of the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Pakistan, Turkey, Egypt, Jordan and Bahrain had gone very well. A separate call with Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu had also gone well. Notably absent from the announcement, any mention of Iran's nuclear program, the stated reason the conflict began. Within hours, Iran's FARS news agency, affiliated with the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, issued a response calling Trump's claims incomplete and inconsistent with reality. Iran stated the strait would remain under its management and control. This is, by my count, the fourth time since the war began on February 28th that the president has announced a deal and Iran has denied it within the same news cycle. At this point, what we have is not a pattern. It is a loop, and the costs of that loop are now quantifiable. The Institute on Taxation and Economic Policy has been tracking additional fuel costs since the conflict began. As of May 23rd, the average American household has paid $312.60 more for motor fuel than it would have without the war. By end of summer, that figure is projected to reach $870. Aggregate, Americans have collectively paid approximately $41.7 billion more to the oil industry since February 28th. The national average for regular gasoline now stands at $4.50 per gallon, up 53% from the $2.94 it cost the week before the war started. Diesel averages $4.99, within a cent of $5 for the first time since December 2022. Trucking companies are already adding fuel surcharges, and those costs pass directly to consumers through higher prices on everything that moves by road, which in the United States is effectively everything. The Energy Information Administration projected gasoline will average $3.88 for all of 2026. Before the war, that same projection was $2.91. $1 per gallon sustained across an entire calendar year represents hundreds of billions in additional costs absorbed by households, businesses and governments at every level. Patrick DeHaan of GasBuddy has noted that even if the strait reopens immediately, a return to pre-war prices could take well beyond a year. The damage is already embedded in supply chains and contracts. The cycle has repeated with remarkable consistency. Trump signals escalation, oil spikes, Gulf leaders urge restraint. Trump stands down. Oil does not fully recover. Iran consolidates control of the strait through its new Persian Gulf Trade Authority. Trump announces progress. Iran denies it. The national debt compounds. The deficit widens. And the nuclear issue, the reason the war was ostensibly started, is conspicuously absent because Iran successfully negotiated it out of the current discussion weeks ago. The country that was bombed to force it to surrender its nuclear program has removed that program from the table entirely. I want to say something that goes beyond the data. There are professional diplomats on both sides, mediators from Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, Turkey, and Egypt. Serious people with decades of experience in exactly this kind of conflict resolution. And yet 3 months in, with tens of thousands of lives lost, millions displaced, and tens of billions extracted from American households, the public face of these negotiations is a social media post that gets flatly contradicted within hours by a state news agency on the other side of the world. There are genuine existential challenges requiring the full attention of every serious government on Earth: the climate crisis, artificial intelligence governance, and antimicrobial resistance. Instead, the planet's largest economy and one of the oldest civilizations in history are locked in a globally televised dispute about whether they are even in the same room, while ordinary Americans pay $4.50 a gallon to watch it play out on their phones. Looking ahead, this announcement will likely follow the same trajectory as the previous three. Oil will probably remain above $100 through summer. American households will likely absorb another $500 in additional fuel costs by September. The pattern holds. The cost compounds. I'm Nova Sterling. The numbers are what they are. And the bill keeps climbing.
That's today's news. Please hit that like button, and I'll see you on the next one.